I was listening to a woman speak the other night about her current situation in life. Her mother had declined to such a degree that she had to move into a nursing home. This woman had the unpleasant task of cleaning out her mother's apartment. She was deeply distraught and very emotional as she pleaded with those listening to not do this to their children, to make a plan for one's things and possessions, and to not leave children to bear the burden of having to decide how to dispose of a parent's stuff. She wasn't speaking of the actual burden, the work of cleaning out, but the emotional burden, sharing how terrible and horrific she felt to have to give away all the things her mother loved because she did not have the space in her own home to keep them. It was literally weighing her down. I could see it. And while I cried with her because I felt her pain, I also felt a sorrow for her because she had done this to herself. It was a familiar pain, this burdening. She had weighed herself down with the burden of false expectations, her own expectations, and wasn't seeing it and freeing herself from it. I know this behavior all too well because I've been there and can still be there if I'm not careful. A few years ago, I had been working in a professional capacity with a man whose wife had just passed away. Honestly, I did not get along with his wife. She was a pot stirrer, overly dramatic and disingenuous, and even though I met with her socially on a few occasions, it was easy to see how self-centered she was. However, her husband is a very nice and caring man. When the funeral was announced, I found myself in a quandary. Should I go? What was the expectation of me? I actually tortured myself when trying to make this decision. It took me a while to realize I placed this expectation on myself that I had to go. Realistically, even though I had worked with this man, there was no expectation there that I would attend the funeral. I even knew that he wouldn't care or, to be honest, even notice my absence among the many attending. These were all rational and true thoughts. But it didn't matter. Once I got into the mindset that I had to go even though I didn't want to, then it was difficult for me to think rationally, to even entertain the thought that maybe it would be okay if I didn't go. We can see all sides, can't we? While this is beautiful when it comes to handling others, when it comes to ourselves, it can be absolutely torturous. We know, or think we know, and this is key, what others will think and expect and demand of us. And when we think we know, but don't really know, or when we've had an experience in the past of actually letting someone down in some way, this is when the yoke is strapped on and becomes heavier and heavier. What we can't see at the time is that we were the ones who placed the yoke there or allowed it to stay. Perhaps that yoke was put upon our shoulders by an abusive parent, and instead of realizing we had the power to remove it, we kept wearing it and laboring under it. It's like Dorothy and the ruby slippers. Just like she always had the power wearing the shoes but just didn't realize it, we have the power to remove that burden of false expectations from ourselves. You can call it false expectations or false guilt. It doesn't matter. They are the same. False expectations and false guilt come from the same place, a feeling and not a fact. It's irrational and not realistic. Expectations and guilt in and of themselves aren't bad things. When they are based on truth, they can propel us in a positive direction. If you have healthy expectations of a relationship, you can move towards strong relationships. If you have healthy guilt over something you've done wrong, you can experience healing and freedom from that guilt and move forward in a positive way. But when expectations and guilt are based on feelings, they can keep us going in circles, never progressing or moving forward. False expectations and guilt stem from unrealistically high standards which we can never meet. As I said earlier, these high standards may have been set upon us as children, trying to please an abusive parent who could never be pleased, the feeling that you've done something wrong when that was just created in you by the abuser. It could also come from a place of pride, from an unwillingness to view yourself as you truly are, from a place of not wanting to face the real truth about oneself. Do you care too much about your image, what others will think? And this unwillingness to be truly honest in this way, this lack of self-understanding, can lead to withdrawal and isolation, a feeling that no one could possibly ever understand you, an unwillingness to share, or loss of confidence in your true gifts, and most tragic, the loss of authentic self-expression. When you set the bar so high there is no way to realistically achieve it, you will inevitably miss. And then the thoughts come sneaking in. I'm no good. I need to do better. I'm not good enough. What do others think of me? These thoughts then lead to more emotions, more false guilt, which then makes us work even harder to meet the unrealistically high expectations. Then you are in survival mode, which shuts down positive forward movement. It's not long after that before you associate guilt, which is behavior, to shame, which is identity. From I've done terrible things to I am broken. From I've made mistakes to I am a mistake. The woman I mentioned at the beginning, was she responsible for her mother's things? No. Her mother was responsible. They were her mother's things. How many things in life do we take responsibility for when they truly aren't our responsibility? We have enough things in life which are our responsibility, and we shouldn't break our backs adding things which we truly aren't or shouldn't be responsible for. False expectations are a horrible taskmaster, and once you are ready to admit you are your own taskmaster, then the process towards true freedom can begin.